Okay, morning everybody. So I think we are just about there. We've got a few people that are still joining. If you are just logging on, please do say hi in the chat box. That will be open throughout, and let us know what you're hoping to get out of today. Welcome to our webinar for Global Entrepreneurship Week. And this is an introduction to the new High Potentials program for Guernsey. We're really pleased to have Ben and Carl on the call today, who are going to be taking you through the program. It's a really exciting upskilling and development opportunity for Guernsey residents, and I think something that will be hopefully really impactful. So it's a short webinar today. We have got the Q&A box open. In fact, I can already see some questions coming through, which is super. Really great engaged group already. So please do pop any questions as they come up into that Q&A box. We'll have time at the end to go through them. And please do make sure that if you have any questions at the end as well, and there isn't time or you think of something afterwards, please do pop us an email. So today's session, Carl and Ben are going to take you through the structure of the program. We're going to talk you through the criteria, and we'll also put links through so that you can register for interest. This is part of our Smart Guernsey program. So this does mean that this is a fully funded program, which we're really pleased to announce today. It is part of the program that we are doing with Agilitas Guernsey and part of a wider suite of initiatives. So if you find that this one isn't for you, please do get in touch, because we do have other programs that we're working with Avado and Blenheim Chalcott on. Super, right, so I shall pass over to Ben, who's going to do a bit of an introduction, and then over to Carl. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. And it's great to, I would say, see all of you, but I can't see all of you, but I know you're there. So thanks so much for joining this morning. At least it is here in the US, but I guess lunchtime over in Guernsey. And as Lucy said, yeah, we have fully funded places for this program, and it's this joint delivery by Blenheim Chalcott and Avado. So I'll let Carl speak to Avado, but I'm the sort of representative from Blenheim Chalcott side. And just a bit of context, Blenheim Chalcott is the UK's leading digital venture builder. And we have about 20 years of experience in building and scaling startups in various digital spaces. And we've become the sort of self-styled innovation experts of doing so. So what we're going to bring to the program is a lot of real concrete entrepreneurial and sort of exciting skills and techniques that you can use to help build and scale your own businesses on island. And we'll get into what that looks like in the program in just a second. But I'll hand it over to Carl.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Lucy. So yeah, just a short introduction to myself. I'm conscious I've seen some names in the participant list who I've spoken to before, so I know some of you are aware of who I am and who Avado are, but for those that don't, so my name's Carl. I'm client director at Avado. Been with the organisation now for 6.5 years. Been working with Lucy as part of the Digital Skills Initiative now with Guernsey for almost 2 years. So there's a variety of different programs that we deliver, HPP being one of them in partnership with Blenheim Chalcott. You might be also familiar with the other work that we're doing on the island at the moment, such as the Digital Leaders Boot Camps, the apprenticeship programs, the Squared Online courses. And really, yeah, the purpose of today's session is to provide everyone with an overview of the course, kind of go into a little bit more of the finer detail. So hopefully at the end of the session, you'll have a far greater understanding of what's involved. But as Lucy mentioned, more than happy to answer questions as we're going through today's session. So feel free to either take yourselves off mute or put them into the Q&A box. And yeah, hopefully you kind of get what you're looking for from today's session. So I will now pass you back over to Ben, and you'll be hearing from me kind of throughout different points of today.
Great. Thanks so much, Carl. So we're gonna jump right into it and take a look under the hood here at what the HPP actually will be. So as Lucy said, it's part of this economic development program, which is why we can offer fully funded places on the program. And it'll last 12 weeks. It'll be predominantly virtual. And it's really a leadership course at its heart. So, we're equipping leaders and emerging leaders on island to be able to drive change going forward. And we're looking to have about 20 to 30 participants, and we'll get into a little bit later what those ideal participants actually look like. But this is the sort of overall goal and objective of the program. Okay, so what is HPP, right? As we said, this will be a joint delivery by Glenham Chalcott and Avado. So we'll have lots of opportunities for sessions, online content, webinars, and of course, opportunity for you to apply some of those learnings. And we'll be jointly delivering it together. And we'll get into what each of those components actually look like in just a second. But the key thing to note here is that it's going to be very interactive. So quick context at Glenham Chalcott, we're trying to sort of overhaul how learning and development and training is done. We believe that it's typically broken and that, it doesn't really put the learner at the center of their own journey. So we want people to really be interactive throughout the sessions that we're going to offer. And we're supposed to, everybody should be learning from each other just as much as you'll learn from the teachers, so to speak. It's already funded, and the end goal is to walk away from HPP with the following: that you'll have a sort of knowledge of fundamental business skills that you'll need to be able to go ahead and drive change. And this won't just be in any particular functional silo. You'll gain expertise in sales, marketing, people management and leadership, and so forth throughout the 3 modules that we'll cover. And the other 2 big buckets are that, we'll address how you can be agile and how you can set and implement strategy and know when to pivot. So, it's not just enough to, create a plan for a project. You have to know how and when to adapt it if necessary, as is often the case. And the goal here, and it's also quite interesting, is that we really want people both as employees from states of Guernsey, but also private industry. And the belief here, once again, is that we can have more of this cross-pollination, that we can all, be able to learn from one another and from our various backgrounds and expertises. So we're trying to create this mixed cohort where people will really be coming from different backgrounds. So what the ideal cohort and candidates look like, as I mentioned, where we're looking for about 20 to 30 participants from both private industry and also employees of states of Guernsey. And, the goal here, once again, is to sort of maximize the reach, but also be able to have these sessions be really interactive. Any more than 20 and 30, and, you don't really get that close cohort learning and sharing that you might get otherwise. So that's quite important. And what the actual candidate looks like, and keep in mind, these are basically rough guidelines. We'll get into the application process a little bit later, but just as a look of what, a candidate who might be best suited for HPP looks like, they would have about 6 to 10 years of overall work experience, and at least a minimum of 1 year with States of Guernsey or an on-island business, just to make sure there's some continuity and that they're able to, take the course and then go back and implement the lessons that they took away from HPP. And then the single most important criterion, I would say, is that you're looking to move into senior leadership positions down the road, and that you have this curiosity and ambition to learn as much as possible, and to really go and then implement those lessons along the way. Awesome. So here is the big overview of what the learner journey will look like on HPP. And in the next couple of slides, we'll address each of these buckets in turn. But you can see from this handy dandy key we've put together, the purple ones is where Avado and BC will be working together. The green ones is primarily led by Avado, and I'll hand that over to Carl. And then the blue ones are Glenham Chalcott. So, like I said, we'll get into this in just 1 second here, but I think it would be helpful to talk about the interactive seminars real quickly. As a bit of background, before I came to Glenham Chalcott, I was at Harvard Business School, where I was writing case studies for the business school. And the HBS case study methodology is really this Socratic seminar, peer learning based exercise. And so that's how we'll be running these interactive seminars. The whole goal is to really upend how you think about digital learning in a way to make it really exciting and hopefully quite applicable to what you're looking for. So we'll have these interspersed throughout the 3 main modules, which are project management, change management, and leading teams. And Avado will also be delivering some of its webinars from its subject matter experts, which we'll hear from Carl in 1 second what that looks like. All the meanwhile, we'll have a digital community on Hive, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. Hive Learning is another BC business, and I know that Hive platform is used on Guernsey quite a bit, but there'll be a sort of training on how to use that for those not familiar with it at the beginning during the kickoff. All right, so without further ado, as I said, we'll get into each one of those elements and what they look like. And I see a question from Dominic. Will the slides overview be shared? Yes, we can share those. So have no fear if you didn't screenshot the learner journey. Cool. So yeah, as I said about the interactive, you're welcome, Dominic, or Dom, interactive seminars here, they're really interactive and discussion based. So we're using this Socratic method of peer learning, where it's not just somebody talking at you for an hour, right? We want to be able to share our experiences and sort of be guided towards common learning objectives and goals. Okay, and this will all be focused on digital skills and building an entrepreneurial mindset. Typically, this will require a little bit of preparation before the session, so we can have a sort of shared document or concept to frame our discussion. And thereafter, you'll typically be asked to do a small sort of application task just to really embed that learning. Throughout the actual sessions, we'll have some BC experts delivering them, and they'll really rely on concrete and personal examples to really hit home and illustrate the topic. So we're not just interested in theory for theory's sake, we're interested in the application of theory. And you'll really see that come to life with these BC experts. And then finally, each session will end with a sort of summary of some of the key learnings and how you can go forth and apply them and how it relates to the program more broadly. Okay, and of course, digital learning community will be this repository for all of our thoughts, musings, and various other resources that will be made available after sessions so that you can perhaps further explore, share with your teams, and so forth. Okay, so the online modules, I will turn it over to Carl for this.
Brilliant, thanks, Ben. If you have everything on screen, that's wonderful. So yeah, so this component of the program is effectively what it says. It's online interactive learning modules, which will be conducted across the program. So as a refresher, you might have seen it on the learner journey slide. There's 3 modules which we'll be asking learners to complete, which is project management, change management, and leading teams. So those are the 3 modules which are built up into the program. And the purpose of this section really is to give individuals kind of the foundations and the principles really behind those 3 topics. So after completion of each of these modules, we'll be having customized webinars and application activities, which I'll talk you through in kind of the next few minutes. But as I said, these online modules are about giving people that foundation and that knowledge to be able to go into kind of the next part of the program. So in terms of the structure, as I said, there's 3 modules, and it's approximately 12 hours worth of learning across each of those modules. And each module will last for 4 weeks. So effectively, for this part of the program, what we'll be asking learners to do is be putting approximately 12 hours aside across a 4-week period. And how you'd want to navigate that across the 4-week period will have elements of flexibility. So you don't need to do these sections on kind of certain dates or certain times. It does have flexibility as long as you're able to complete those 12 hours within kind of that 4-week pathway. That's kind of the main purpose really, that we want this section to be completed before attending the relevant webinar. So as I mentioned, you're kind of working your way through that at your own pace, and it's got that flexibility involved. And you'll find as well on the online modules that the tasks and activities which are built into the campus are interactive. So Ben mentioned earlier about the importance of having interactive learning. So it's not just going to be a case of reading through documentation and reports. There is elements of that in terms of kind of reading through case studies and other components which can kind of enhance your knowledge. But there'll be other things involved in the campus, such as videos, infographics. There's forums on there where we'll ask learners to interact with each other. We have a variety of kind of different components, which the purpose of these modules is, as I said, to make it an interactive and engaging experience. It's not just a case of sitting at your screen and reading through bags full of content. So yeah, there'll be a variety of different tasks and activities built into the module, which will then give you that knowledge, which will hopefully then be a good foundation to take you into the webinars. So I think that's a good link, Ben, to take us through to the next slide.
Sure is. Great. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, there we go. So this section here, so there will be effectively 3 webinars that will be part of the program, and approximately in terms of the learner journey, we'll be looking at about week 4, week 8, and week 12. As I mentioned earlier, these webinars will follow completion of the online learning, so it's quite well linked. And these webinars, these are going to be customized to the group, but just to give you an idea and a flavour of a couple of the topics that we've discussed so far, and just to let you know, these will be confirmed in time. But one of the things that we're looking at is how to kind of lead teams effectively in a digital world, kind of sharing examples and case studies from our experience, how demystifying Agile and Scrum. So that's just a couple of ideas of the things that we're looking at delivering for these webinars. You'll be looking at typically 1 hour for each of these, but as I said, these will be live sessions. These will be delivered by a subject matter expert. They will be recorded and uploaded to the campus afterwards, but to get maximum value from it, we strongly encourage people to attend the live session, because that gives you an opportunity to ask questions, to interact with your cohort, pick the brains of the SME, the subject matter expert. So we feel there's much more value in actually attending this session live. And kind of what we want to do with this, similar with the application activity as well, is to bring those modules to life a little bit more, and actually give you something kind of substantial, which hopefully you can take away then into your job role and your future development. So that's kind of the purpose behind those webinars. Yep, so I'll pass back over to you, Ben, I think, for the next part.
Yeah, so there are clearly a lot of great sessions, and I think hopefully you'll benefit from having 2 maybe slightly different but complementary approaches in the BC-led sessions and the Avado-led sessions, all of which will revolve around these main topics of people management, leadership, project execution, change management, and so forth. So real quickly, as I gestured to earlier, we'll have this really swanky digital learning community. And this will be hosted on Hive, as I mentioned, which is, it is a BC business. And Hive is fantastic as a place to sort of aggregate and put various learnings, but also to have a discussion around a lot of them. So if I'm not mistaken, there already is a large Hive page active on Guernsey, and a lot of the streams that I know Lucy and Carl perhaps oversee, called the Learning Hub. This will link to that as well. So we'll have our own HPP dedicated Hive page, but you'll also be able to have access to this broader ecosystem of Guernsey activity all around innovation and execution on the Learning Hub. So you'll have a dedicated community manager, and that person will regularly review content that you post, but will also post additional content relevant to the sessions, and be available to answer specific questions about the actual learning community, and any concerns or thoughts that might arise. So real quickly, this is a little mock-up of what the digital learning community looks like from a program we run at BC called BC Build. And you see here that you have this central dashboard, and there are resources where you can access individual cards. We'll probably use that before the interactive sessions. And then there are also chat features. You can create groups, etc., when you're working on your application activity, which we'll touch on in a second. But like I said, we'll have a much more in-depth how to use Hive session for the program kickoff. And with that, I'll hand it over to Carl for the application activity.
Brilliant, thanks, Ben. Yeah, if you can bring up the full slide, that would be wonderful. Cheers, thank you. Yeah, so the application activity, probably kind of to best describe this, I would say, is that you've got your online learning modules, you've got the webinars and the other components of the program, which is all about kind of giving you that knowledge and kind of that theoretical approach. And the purpose of the application activity is to apply some practicality to it. So what we try and do with this particular activity is to bring in a real life scenario for people to actually work on. So it's a project that the group will be working on. So quite typically we'll put people into small working groups, normally about 5 or 6 people, and they'll have kind of sessions of working together on in terms of what they're going to be producing. So typically this process would involve having a case study to work on. And again, we're choosing a relevant case study as much as possible for your organisations that you're working in. So again, that will be confirmed in time, but ultimately it's about trying to have, because obviously multiple different organisations coming onto this cohort, is trying to have as much business impact as possible. So we'd be looking at something as relevant as we can. And then as a result of that case study, you'd be looking at quite typically looking at putting together a briefing paper or a business report to work on. So you'd be working as a group to be able to put that together. Part of that will also be putting a project plan together, to be working on that to implement that project. So that kind of looks at the project management aspect of this activity. And quite typically would be asking people to do a short presentation to report back to the wider group. So as I said, the idea behind this is that you've got the theory, you've gained the knowledge. Can we put something into practice now? This is the idea of the application activity to bring forward. Now we're always open to these case studies being assessed and looked at. So if as a group, your group felt actually we feel it would be much better to work on a case study A, which could be a real life business problem or a real life business challenge, which the businesses together have as a common goal, then we'll be absolutely open to that. Because like I said, the purpose of this is to have that, hopefully that tangible action plan which you can take forward as a result of completing this activity. So that's the purpose behind this section. So hopefully all of that makes sense. But this is why we do this at the end, because all the other aspects you'll be doing as part of the program, as I say, is building your foundations, building the knowledge, and then you'll ultimately conclude the program with this activity. Yeah, I'll pass back to you, Ben.
Thanks so much, Carl. Yeah, so we're gearing up towards this application activity, so you really have a chance to apply all the lessons that you'll get from HPP, and then ultimately back to your businesses. So in terms of next steps and what the actual timeline looks like, you can see here that we have this register interest link on the web page that gives some information about HPP that'll be live for the rest of the calendar year. And in January, applications will go live. You'll have probably about until the end of February to apply, and we'll sort of make final decisions in March, and you'll be asked to submit a statement of commitment, because these are fully funded places, and it'll perhaps be quite competitive. We really want to make sure that you'll be committed to, if selected, to participate in the program. And then the program, of course, runs 12 weeks, beginning at the end of March, very beginning of April, and it will conclude with this graduation, and you'll be a certified high potential program completer, I guess, at the end of June. And that's pretty much the timeline and next steps. What the application actually looks like will be made quite clear when it goes live in January. And if you pre-register, you'll be notified as soon as those applications go live. So with that, I thought we could leave some time for questions, and I'm sure Carl and I would be happy to answer those. I'll stop sharing for the time being.
So I just think, just from me, I've just popped a couple of links for everybody in the chat. So you got the link there for the pre-registration. I know we're already up into double figures for people that have pre-registered, which is super. And I've also popped a little link into Hive. So if you're not on Hive yet and you'd like to come and join our Learning Hub, I think we have almost 300 people on there now from Guernsey. So, so quite a good diverse range of people, and there's new content going in there quite regularly. So just 2 links in the chat there.
And sorry, just something to add from me as well. I'm conscious there might be people on the call who might be not necessarily looking for themselves. They might have other colleagues of their organisation that might be interested in this programme. So what we're more than happy to do following this session, if you did want to book your colleague in or your colleagues in for a quick catch-up call with myself, Ben, or Lucy, we're happy to kind of talk through the content in a little bit more detail and share that directly with the potential applicant. So what I would say is please do reach out if there's any questions, or if you wanted to kind of find out more information and to set up a conversation between the relevant people.
So Carl, just one question that's come up in another conversation, which I think might be useful for people. And I think you've touched on it already today, but just to be clear around the time commitments for people who are full-time employed at the moment, looking at taking on this program, what sort of, just to really clearly sort of set out, is there flexibility around the time commitments? Are there things that they really do need to put in on a weekly basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose the answer to that, without sounding flaky, is yes and no. There's bits that are flexible, and then there's others not so much flexible. So certainly from kind of the Avado side, what I would say is, for example, I mentioned it's 4 weeks to complete those online modules. You've got flexibility within those 4 weeks as and when you do that. So you could put in a couple of 3 hours a week, for example. You could kind of do all that in week 1. So then you're giving yourself that time on week 2, 3, and 4 to focus on other things. So there's certainly flexibility within that section. What I would say is that for the webinars, there's not much flexibility around that, because that's a live session which will be quite set in stone, but you'll be given a full schedule of that, so people will know well in advance of when those webinars will be taking place. And as I said, because it's not going to be a full day, it's just going to be approximately an hour or so not going to be hopefully too much time taken out of the diary. And then the application activity, because you'll be working in groups, kind of the purpose behind that, or the idea behind that, is that you'll agree on mutual times to meet as a group and find relevant times to kind of have that conversation and work on that project together. So, but if you were going to ask me in terms of how much time per week will I need to spend on it as an average across the whole program, it could vary, but you'd be looking at maybe about 4 to 6 hours a week. Would anything to add to that, Ben?
Yeah, I do think it depends on the person, and I would say the majority of that time is primarily asynchronous. So you could do it at your own leisure, as Carl said. Of course, the customized webinars and on BC side, the interactive seminars will be at fixed times, but we'll make sure to publish those ahead of schedule, as far as we can, so you can make time to go to them. And just on the interactive seminars, you saw that there are about 4 of them, and it'll typically take maybe an hour of preparation and then an hour in the session. So it's nothing too onerous, but if you do the little activity beforehand and you come to the session, you'll get a lot out of it. So I would say that most of it will be on your own time. And so there is a lot of flexibility. So it shouldn't be too cumbersome to handle.
And just for those live, sorry, I was just going to add, Louise, just for those live sessions, again, timings are to be confirmed, but we did discuss about having them in and around lunchtime. So hopefully that offers some flexibility for people to attend them within kind of that a working day, if you will. We're keen not to have them in evenings, because that people have childcare commitments and other things going on in life. So we're quite keen to have the live sessions, if we can, in and around lunchtime. But as I said, timings will be confirmed in time.
Super. And I think just picking up on Dominic's put a question in the chat there as well, just adding to what we've just gone through, the additional details around the syllabus and the learning pathways will be coming out as we go live with the content on the website. I think that we'll be able to put more details out. Excellent.
Definitely.
I think we've had a question in the Q&A section as well from Nikita, just saying, will there be a consideration for those who do not fit the ideal candidate criteria, i.e. 6 to 10 years of work experience? Ben, I don't know if you want to answer that.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and apply. As I said, these are basically rough guidelines. We're going to try to have a cohort that would really benefit each other as much as possible. But depending on the applications received and depending on some other things that you might bring to the table, if you're really interested and you really want to make a case for why you should be on the program, then it's worth applying.
And I think that links into Lisa's question around how we select candidates, if there's going to be more places than spaces available. I think it does come down to that application form, which will be released in the new year, and putting your application through in your case. I think we are done for questions.
All right,
yes.
Cool.
Hopefully it was that informative for everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for attending. I really appreciate it. I'm very, very excited about this, and I'm sure this will be a really interesting thing to take going forward. So I really appreciate Lucy and Ben Ratton for coordinating this, and Carl for co-hosting as well. But I hope to see all of your applications soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Do reach out if there's any questions. Happy to support, and hopefully, yeah, we'll be in contact again very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.